than we do on the asphalt or the cement. It's never going to work out.
Kansas GOP Senator Roger Marshall on Fox. America is listening to Fox News.
Your home for news and conversation is now also on the FM dial. KFAR 660 AM and now at 97.5 FM.
Sounds like we're live, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. Hello.
Intro?
We got Joshua?
All right, let's go.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, I'm here.
Josh?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Are you there?
No, he's talking, but he's muted.
He's muted.
I'll fix it.
Anyways, we're here for another adventure of Patriots Lament. You guys know headphones?
There I am. Sorry. All right. Hey, Mike.
Oh,
Morning.
Number is 458-8255, and one of the subjects we were going to talk about today is what do you want to do as the Great Reset progresses? Where do you want to be? How are you going to prepare for that? So we'll be talking about that. And let's see, we're still trying to get Josh up here.
No, I think I'm in, aren't I?
This is the great idiocracy.
Anyway, so that's what we want to. We'd like you to call in about that today. We're also going to go over a news story that was in the Newsminer last night that I found. Apparently, Alaska is going to take title of Alaska's waterways. Dunleavy announced Friday afternoon in a hastily called press conference that the state is taking ownership of more than 800,000 miles of navigable rivers and 30 million acres of navigable lakes, now under title, permitting and control of the federal government. So this seems to have grown out of the Supreme Court case involving one of the individuals who were accosted by feds on the rivers several years ago. And so the precedence is that Alaska should have control over its own navigable waters. The feds don't consider them to be navigable waters. So I don't know what I don't know what their reasoning is on that. Why they would consider it not navigable.
I just always play word games, man.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's all word games. And then, of course, Alaska is also joining the lawsuits against the Biden administration over the oil leases. It's an interesting. It's a nice thing to see. It's kind of the is this the beginning of the end of the empire as people begin to separate? They finally see that the finances, the bribe money is not going to be there in the future, maybe. And so maybe it's time to start looking at developing your own resources for your own survival.
Word.
And it kind of plays into what we want people to call in and talk about. Is this the place you want to be? What is the character of the place that you want to be? Yeah, we got a call already. Go ahead.
Okay.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah. Hey, Dave.
Just buzzing in on the hotline here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Fine. What do you? Had you seen the story that was in there last night in the Newsminer?
No,
I'm sorry, the Newsminer.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it looks like Alaska, Dunleavy is taking control or trying to take control of the navigable waters, and really don't know any more than that. The letter that he put out seems pretty forceful, and that they just intend to take title of them because they're tired of waiting on the feds.
With what? How is this implemented?
They're taking over all the navigable waters. Can you hear me, Dave?
Yeah. So the letter he put out says there are many longstanding issues regarding state and federal resource management in Alaska, dating back to statehood. Alaska was promised a right to a sovereign government with the authority to manage its lands, waters, and resources. And, and we can kind of pick that apart because it's hard to be. We touched on this last week. It's hard to be sovereign when you're taking money, when you're taking the good doggy money, right?
Bribes.
And I don't know if they will ever come to that conclusion. I think they'll be forced to come to that conclusion eventually when there's no more federal money to be taken. One of the specific rights is the right to receive title from the federal government to all submerged lands beneath navigable waters. Unfortunately, the federal government hasn't lived up to these promises. Recent conclusions by the United States Supreme Court in the Sturgeon case affirm the state's title to submerged lands. So they're relying on the Supreme Court case for grabbing the titles.
Title to submerged land. So what do you think he's trying to get out in front of? Like some undersea mining or what?
The only thing it points to is the navigable waters issue. It sounds kind of like using the rivers as highways. I don't know if he's planning to put barges on them or what.
Well, I think maybe
I don't know.
I think maybe he's just trying to get ahead of
The answer
like oil leases and stuff
I
like
would
that.
live at
Mhm.
would be. I would like to live in a place that not only recognizes the rights of
My
land
mic not work.
things, but upholds it. That's the law of the land. That's it. That's my simple answer. A place that recognizes the rights of man.
Okay, and what then we kind of get into the discussion too, is maybe off in the weeds a little bit. What are rights? How do we define a right? I mean, I have my understanding of it. How do you understand it?
Any action that doesn't harm another human being or their property, and if it would be wrong for anybody else to stop me, if it's wrong for you to stop me, like wrong for you to keep me from, holding a gun or tell me where I can go or tell me this. If it's wrong for you, then it's my right. It's right for me to be left alone. Mm-hmm. It's right for me to, have my life, liberty, property. It's right. And those are my rights.
Yeah,
That's the way I look at it.
yeah, that's what I look at too. It's a right. The word is an abstraction. It's a right is a right simply means that we recognize it as being morally wrong to accost you for engaging in an activity of your choice. That's all a right is. It's
Granted,
wrong.
I'm not harming anybody or their property or their rights.
Yeah. And we've lost that concept. I mean, the word rights is so ubiquitously used that people think it's a thing rather than a concept. And so that's when you get into the positive rights thing, which is a violation of rights. Honestly, every positive right is a violation of someone else's rights. And since people are using the word right so ubiquitously, they've lost the concept.
I think the concept's gone.
Yeah, it is.
I was watching Open Range last week,
Mhm.
movie, and it was great because the guy had this speech, and he's like, "How can one man tell another man where he can go?"
Mhm.
And I was like, he's like, "I'm not going to fight for my cows. I'm not going to fight for my money, but I'm going to fight over the principle that we got this guy trying to tell me where I can and can't go, what I can and can't do." And that was enough for him. And that's a great question. How can one man tell another man where he can go, what he can do, what he's got to put on his face, it's ridiculous.
And that's the most important question, I think, to be asked and answered if you're trying to figure out where do you want to go for this. Where is there a place where people don't believe in accosting their neighbor for engaging in harmless activity to someone else?
I don't know.
Because if that's not recognized, you can't do anything else. If the concept of property rights isn't recognized, how can you do anything else? You can't build a shop. You can't build stuff. It's just going to get stolen.
I think it used to be America.
It used to be.
Hey, Mike, Can you guys hear me?
Now we're just trying to.
Mike, can you hear me?
We're trying to pick the least ugly of the three ugly sisters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally what it is.
The cleanest of all the dirty shirts in the dirty shirt pile. Which one you want to put on?
Right. Yeah.
This thing that did you guys read the article on what's going on with Dunleavy here?
Yeah. Did you have it there?
Okay, yeah, it's I think it's pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Basically, there are, I think, a couple sides to it. There's being able to access land, which you need to use. You need to use rivers and lakes to do that, just because there's no roads. So that's part of it, and I think that also will allow, traversing all the national land, which you can't build roads on.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
So that's necessary for, it's necessary for hunting, which is what he cited, but it's also necessary for mining and stuff like that.
Right.
It probably also means that there's probably also implications there for EPA regulation of waterways. I would guess.
It did say that federal that pollution laws wouldn't be shot down. Federal pollution laws. So, yeah, I mean, I think you're right on that.
Yeah. So there's probably right, transportation corridors and conduits for business development. Yeah. Announced Friday. Interactive map. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting. It's bizarre. It's great. Cool, whatever. But it's weird because he won't. Maybe he realizes how late to the party he is, as far as standing up for the rights of the people in his state over the last year, and so he just threw a dart at a dartboard of what could I do to actually look like, to look like I'm actually doing something in support of the people that live here.
Yeah, that's the thing. We've been we've been pretty
take on it.
Yeah, we've been pretty critical of him over the past year because of the COVID stuff. I mean, he hasn't been nearly as bad as some of the others, like the guy in New York or the lady in Michigan. But
no, that's true. That's very true.
So you can give him credit for that. But I suppose it'd be kind of interesting to actually sit down with him and talk and see, does he even know about Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset or any of that? Does he actually know what's going on, or is he just relying on garbage that's being fed to him?
I think anybody that doesn't understand the rights of man, the rights of humankind, is unfit for that sort of an office. Not only that sort of an office, but any judicial type of office. If they don't understand the rights of man, the rights of things, they are absolutely unfit for that office. And I don't get why we're going to nullify this and nullify that. If it's okay with you that we nullify it, I would nullify. I mean, if I was in the first 60 seconds, I would have nullified everything that's not in the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. Nullified. So I'm not impressed by him at all.
Oh no, we never said we were impressed.
Yeah, but I think that's what he's wanting to trigger. I think he's wanting to trigger, like David was kind of alluding to, that what's his take? What's he trying to do? Is he trying to get the people to feel like, oh, okay, maybe he's a good guy after all. At least he's trying to do something.
Yeah. Well, there's also the proposal that was also, I found it yesterday also, a proposal from him to make snow machines and four-wheelers legal on roads 45 miles an hour or less.
And choice between, sorry to interrupt, but a choice between Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, Hitler. That's not a good choice.
No.
None of the above. That's my choice. None of the above.
No, but are these things that he's just throwing at a dartboard? like David threw in there?
I think
Possibly.
so. I mean, yeah, I think he's a politician, and I think he wants to stay in power, and I think he's a manipulator and likes to play games, and I think the people that he's surrounded by are manipulators and like to play games, and I don't think they have the interest or the rights of people. I think they're all guilty of crimes against humanity. So that's me. That's what I think. I don't think he's a good guy. Not at all.
This is probably really good for native communities too. I mean, he has this hunter guy, Sturgeon. I didn't know about that case. You know, this guy went moose hunting, and no problem with how he shot his moose or anything, but he traveled through federally restricted navigable waters in his boat. So the feds charged him. Classic federal move there.
Yeah. Hey, David.
But I bet the natives run into a lot of issues trying to get to villages and stuff with all the federal waters they can't go through.
Yeah, that is true. Hey, David, Josh is wondering if you could call back. The line's crackly.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
try to get it on.
Yeah, just try. Yeah, to call back, see if we can improve it.
We have other
Sure.
callers too. Take another call.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just take another call. We have another call right now, so call back, David.
Hello, caller.
Good morning, Miss Al.
Hey, Al.
Just to maybe give you guys some more insight to what the governor was doing,
Please do.
and and using the word right, but not in the 30,000-foot view of what rights are.
Mm-hmm.
But there was this thing called the Alaska Submerged Lands Act Bill of 1953, which was a contract between the state of Alaska and the federal government that they would own all the submerged lands underneath lakes and rivers in Alaska, regardless if they're navigable or not. So what he's asserting is the state's right, the contract that was made between the two parties, saying that here it is. The Sturgeon case validifies it, and this is what I'm doing. It's been going around for 62 years. We tried it the federal way of bureaucracy. It hasn't worked, and so we're asserting our contractual rights underneath the Submerged Lands Act of 1953.
Okay. Now I'm curious. I'm ignorant on this. What does the word navigable mean in that legislation?
In the Submerged Lands Act, there is the word navigable is not in there. It just says all submerged lands underneath. I shouldn't have inserted navigable. But
Oh, okay.
underneath, the land underneath any body of water belongs to the state of Alaska.
Okay, yeah, because in the letter from the state, they're saying they're using the word navigable, and I don't know what they mean.
Yeah. So the federal government was supposed to determine which bodies of water were navigable, and they did 80 rivers or something. In fact, the Yukon River hasn't even been determined navigable yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this is how egregious one party has been acting with another party. So after 62 years, 2 court cases to the Supreme Court, which was won unanimously, which is you got better chances of winning the lottery in New York than going to the Supreme Court twice and win unanimously twice. Enough is enough. We're going to get some of this transportation rights back, and we're not going to allow the federal government to bully us and give us tickets. The governor said that, if somebody got ticketed or harassed on these waterways that are recognized on the map, that the state would take it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a good move. Of course, it's not the big rosy picture where there's no rules and regulations for everybody and we just do what we want and not harm each other. But today is today. And
it's a great step.
But I'd just like to add, last week I called in and I mentioned, my wife making me take my shoes off before coming in the house. And I think one of the fellas said that, when a business accepts subsidies from the government, they lose some of their private property. I'll use the word rights. Mm-hmm. And, that was kind of quick. It took me off talking in a conversation on a phone. But after reflecting on that, I thought, well, my family, I have, several children when they were young living at home that I received subsidy or credit for my income taxes. So I received something there. I receive a benefit from my mortgage, my interest I pay on my mortgage and my taxes I pay on my land as subsidies or credits, from the federal government. So did I just also lose all my personal private property rights because I partake?
Well, what you call taxes and that, I call extortion.
Well, I don't.
So because you're
disagree
not
with
paying
you.
as much extortion, so you're trying to save yourself from paying more extortion.
Well, it's a choice. You don't have to claim any of your children on any kind of tax form.
Hey, Al, can you hear me now?
If you want to pay taxes or not.
Yeah, we. Sorry, that was Josh.
No, I
in the
don't really
background. I had to
choose.
let him know we
I
hear him.
don't choose to pay taxes. They take taxes. They take them with the threat of violence. With the threat of violence, they take them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I get your points, Al.
Hey, Al, can you hear me?
I think we lost him.
Oh, we did.
Oh, okay. Well, what I was wanting to say was he's, I think, referring to what I said, and I don't necessarily mean if they take any money, because, I mean, you could go down the long stretch of, well, you used the road, you walked on a sidewalk, blah, blah, blah. But my point was with like Walmart, Costco, and such, the reason I say that we can be willing to push their rules, for one, we haven't really pushed anyone's rules or broke their private property because, like Walmart, they tell you up front that you have to wear a mask in there, but their handout that they give their employees says if they don't want to wear them, don't force them to. Well, then we're not violating their private property. Same with Fred Meyer's. Costco, I tried it, got away with it until they finally said, you're gone, or put a mask on. So I just don't go there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense to just go there and make a scene anyways. But what my point is with Costco, Walmart, the big chains, is that I personally believe they were told, the heads of these businesses, look, from the government, this is what we want you to do, require this, this, and this, and your benefit will be that we're going to shut down all your competition and just you businesses will be open. So on that part, they became part of the state. They're state actors now. They're not a private entity, in my opinion. To a certain extent, maybe they are, but when they're enforcing state mandates and state edicts, and for benefit because the government closes all their competition down, and when they're actively working to change and destroy the structure of America, of our society, basically, because they really are. The Great Reset, all these jerks are involved with it, the Costco's and stuff. They're all showing ads that are, woke ads. They're all going along with the social justice warrior crap. So they're part of the, if I can put it nicely, they're part of the enemy now. They're part of the state. So I don't see them so much as a purely unintended consequence, just, oh, well, we didn't know. They know exactly what they're doing. They're part of it. So I don't give them a clean bill of their private property necessarily.
How does not wearing a mask violate anybody's property right?
Well, if they ask you to, then it is.
Well, if I go to your house and you ask me to rub my belly and tap my head at the same and hop on one foot, I mean, just because I'm at your house doesn't make you a dictator of me.
No, but if I told you before you come in my house, you have to do that, or you can't come in. You can't come in unless you do that. It's the same with Walmart or Costco. If they say, or if you go into anybody's house and they say, put a mask on before you come in, you can't go in unless you wear a mask.
Or take your shoes off.
Kind of moving the goalposts, though, right? I've been going to stores for years. I've never been required to indulge in self-harm.
Right.
And I am.
No, I think you're going down a rabbit trail. It's not necessary.
Yeah,
on the 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
There's not, obviously, when it's the same thing. If you invite someone out in a plane, you can't say, well, I don't like you in my private property anymore, and kick them out. The rules have to be known up front. And I'm just saying that Costco, Walmart, all the big chains that got to stay open while they shut everyone else down, they're not playing by the rules. They're making up the rules as they go. They change the rules on us. And not only that, they're actively changing the rules. They know what they're doing. They know that it's destroying small businesses. They don't care. I mean, what we need is someone to stand, like the head cheese of Costco needs to stand up and say, nope, screw you. We're not following any of your orders. But of course they won't, because they know that the state's going to take care of them and destroy all their competition.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Right. And you also brought up the question of are they actually private companies? They benefit from government subsidies, right?
Yeah, but everyone, I mean, you can go down that rabbit trail too, where everyone does. All of us benefit from something from the government. All of us do, right? I mean, whether they stole the money in the first place, it's a long libertarian talk that's not worth having, I don't think. We just have to look at what's happening right now, and those jerks are trying to destroy us. So, one, don't shop there if you don't have to. Go to the mom and pop stores, like Woolly Rhinos. Go shop there. Don't go to Costco. Go to Century Hardware.
Yeah, they're great.
Don't go. We all know places that don't require a mask. Shop there first. And then if you have to, you go to the other places. I mean, we can fight back with our dollars too. But I guess my opinion is they kind of crossed the line. I don't know. What do you think about that, Dave? We've talked about it a little bit. The mega corps that are.
Oh, Dave hasn't made it back yet.
I'm on the StreamYard now.
I got him on StreamYard. Yeah, right on.
So there's this guy. I generally don't do a lot of internet reading anymore because of this guy that I was reading. And he pointed out that most reading is procrastination. And I was like, dang it, that's true.
While you're reading.
While I was reading, yeah, he writes. He writes a column that gets posted on LouRockwell.com every once in a while. And it's like, I'll go there and I'll look for his column. And if it's not there, I'll close the page. His name's Alan Stevo. And I never heard of him before this last year. But anyway, he wrote a piece. Let me see if I can find it. He wrote a piece. Here it is, 320. Well, he's written a bunch, 318. So he wrote one, freedom isn't free, freedom isn't easy, it comes at great sacrifice. And so few want to hear that. And he starts off with this letter that he got from a guy who used to coach like the soccer club. And he refused to do mask stuff, so they kicked him out of the club. But his daughter, he set this example for his daughter, and so she's like 15, and she refused to wear masks for outdoor games. And
okay. Be right back.
Great time, you guys.
News and conversation. KFAR 660 AM Fairbanks. K248DK 97.5 FM Fairbanks. The heartbeat of Alaska.
The migrant crisis at the border are expected to get even worse. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News. That's according to many Republican lawmakers, including a group of them who visited the U.S.-Mexico border yesterday. They claim migrant detention facilities are overflowing and that no precautions are being taken to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Indiana Republican Senator Mike Braun told Fox's Cavuto Live that border officials predict even higher numbers of migrants.
February was about 100,000. It's going to hit about 140,000 in March. This is along the whole sector of the southern border. Texas has got 4 or 5 separate sections themselves, and 250,000 is what the Border Patrol said they're bracing for.
Democrats blame the previous administration for the current crisis. A protest today in New York City demanding Governor Mario Cuomo resign. This as top Cuomo aides have reportedly been issued subpoenas.
Like Melissa DeRosa, according to the Wall Street Journal, she's helped handle New York's pandemic response. And earlier this year, she told the Democratic lawmakers that she worried the nursing home death toll data would be used against them. This week, New York Republican leaders say they want an immediate investigation into whether this time last year, Governor Cuomo gave COVID-19 testing priority to his family members.
Fox's Alex Hogan in New York City. Parts of the South bracing for more severe weather this weekend as many people there are cleaning up from tornadoes this week that left at least 6 people dead in Alabama and Mississippi.
We've got some more severe weather that we're going to be watching across parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley. We've got some storms across parts of Tennessee. Then we're going to see the bigger piece of energy that starts to move in that direction a little bit later on today. And as it does, watch for the threat of severe weather kind of on and off all day, but the bigger event happening later, rain.
Fox meteorologist Rick Reichmuth. America is listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Stay on top of the latest news and information from Fox News. Listen and download the Fox News Hourly Update on your time. The trending stories you need anytime you want it. Listen and download now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Subscribe and listen to the Trey Gowdy Podcast.
Hope is not going to live side by side with anger and fear. It can't. There's a difference between conflict and contrast. I'm all for contrast. I love it. But conflict is debilitating for us individually and collectively as a country. And my hope is we require those who want to influence and persuade us to understand the difference between conflict and contrast.
Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. The Fox News Rundown is a weekday morning podcast that dives deep into the major and controversial stories of the day. Hosted by the anchors of Fox News Radio. Subscribe now to hear a perspective of news you won't find anywhere else. Listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
A giant container ship remains stuck sideways in Egypt's Suez Canal for a 5th day, blocking global shipping through the crucial waterway. Authorities are hoping they can pull the ship free over the next few days using a combination of tugboats, dredging, and high tides. A Minnesota woman who worked as a contractor for the Defense Department is facing prison time after pleading guilty to sharing classified information.
The story almost reads like a spy novel, but there's no happy ending for Miriam Thompson. The U.S. military contract linguist who worked in Iraq is pleading guilty to sharing classified information with a romantic interest linked to Iranian-backed terror group Hezbollah. Prosecutors call it a significant breach of classified info and say Thompson put the lives of American military members and confidential sources at risk. They also say Thompson met the unnamed man via social media and never actually met him in person. Thompson faces life in prison when she's sentenced on June 23rd. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
There's been a big comeback of American bald eagles. Federal officials say the birds recently only numbered in the hundreds of nesting pairs. Fox's Eben Brown has the story.
It was 1963 when the tally was as low as 417. The shocking number prompted preservation efforts. And while it finally was removed from the list of threatened species in 2007, this past decade has seen their numbers quadruple. There are now more than 300,000 eagles in the wild. It's being hailed as a miracle. The bald eagle has a cherished place in U.S. culture and iconography, but its reverence on this continent by indigenous tribes goes back even further. Eben Brown, Fox News.
A judge in Brooklyn, New York, has thrown out a woman's personal injury lawsuit after her attorney refused to wear a mask in court. The attorney had told the judge the mask had made it difficult to breathe. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News.
With stores in Anchorage, Wasilla, North Pole, Fairbanks, and throughout North America, Glassdoctor is your locally owned and operated solution when you need a windshield. With our G12 road hazard guarantee, you get 1 year peace of mind, knowing we will fix or replace your windshield if it gets damaged or broken for free in Alaska, where they put rocks on the road like on purpose. It's practically a buy one, get one free kind of a deal, and only at Glassdoctor.
Call the Glassdoctor, we'll fix your paint. Oh, yeah.
Hello, Fairbanks. It's John from the Westmark Hotel and Conference Center again. Easter is my favorite day of the year. Westmark has Easter options for you. You want to dine in our Northern Latitudes dining room? You've got it. Call 459-7739 and make your brunch reservations today. You want to spend a day at home, but you want someone else to cook for you? Curbside pickup is for you. Enjoy a smoked salmon cake appetizer, followed by slow roasted pot roast with root vegetables and mashed potatoes. Finish the meal off with our house-made strawberry cake. Curbside and dine-in is $35.99 inclusive per person. Call 459-7739. Make your reservations by March 25th and you'll be entered into a drawing to win the Easter gift basket. Come see the Easter Bunny and celebrate with us. Just a reminder that the Westmark is also open for special events. So if you need catering space, call me and I'd love to show you around. That's 459-7739. I hope to see you soon at the Westmark Hotel and Conference Center.
The Eye Clinic of Fairbanks welcomes optometrist Dr. Terry Bell to the team. His interest in eyes and eye care since childhood lends an enthusiasm and desire to serve to his practice. Dr. Bell offers general family vision care with an emphasis on ocular disease and contact lenses. Stress-free eye exams for children and adults. Schedule your appointment today. Call your team of ophthalmologists, optometrists, and opticians. Call 456-7760. The Eye Clinic of Fairbanks. Your eye health professionals by the bridge on Minnie Street.
I'm a goose watcher. I'm a goose watcher. Watching those geese drop by. My, my, my. I'm a goose watcher. I'm a goose watcher. Here comes one now.
Springtime is Goose Watch time, and that means the return of the keys to Creamer's Field is just around the corner. Win $500 in cash, courtesy of Frontier Outfitters and Century Hardware, just for guessing when the first flock of Canada geese arrives. Stop into Frontier Outfitters in the Gavora Mall or Century Hardware in the North Pole Plaza Mall to enter. If your guess is closest to the official time and day without going over, you win $500. Visit KFARradio.com for details and official rules. Must be 18 or older, be a Goose Watcher, and win $500 cash.
Here comes one now.
And we're back. Everybody there?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I'm here. Okay, David, you were you had a point you were making before we got interrupted.
Yeah, I'll just kind of recap a little bit. So this guy Alan Stevo, worth reading, and he had this piece from earlier this month, just a few days ago, and his father wrote in to him, commenting on his articles, and said, I've been taking what you've been saying to heart, and I was coaching this soccer league, and didn't, when these rules came in, I just said, no, I'm not gonna comply with those, so they kicked me out of the league. And then my daughter's 15. She's been following my example, and so when it came time for her to kowtow to stupid rules for outdoor soccer games, she said no. And in her case, the team actually said, and the league actually said, oh, okay, we'll make an exception for you. And so she's the only person in the entire league who plays all of her games without wearing a mask while running around outside. And so he's talking about how proud he was of her, and how she actually stood up for something. He said that she's basically more brave than 99% of men in America. And as a 15-year-old girl. And then he goes on and says, I'm just getting tired though. And he says people wear masks in stores that don't care about masks, yet they still wear them. So the store doesn't even care, but people still do it. And he says, I don't think this ends well for us. And he gets all kind of negative, and just to say that he's out of steam at the end. So in his column, Alan replies to him, and basically he says, look at how great it is. You set an example for your daughter. And now, as far as she sees the world, there isn't any middle ground for her. She's like, well, my dad stood up for this, so I'm not gonna wilt in the face of unsubstantial resistance. And so then he goes on and he says, he basically says, like, there are people who will run for office, and some will make the world, a little bit less free. Some will make it more free. There's people who are wealthy, and some of them will use that wealth to influence the world one way. Some will influence it the other way. He says there's people who have kids, and they say, well, if my kids were grown up and it was just me, then I would do the right thing, but I can't because I got my kids to take care of. And he kind of goes through all these different scenarios, and what it boils down to at the end of the article, he says you can't outsource your own belief about the way the world should be to anyone. If you aren't willing to do what you say, if you aren't willing to do what you say every single day, it will never happen. There is no one else who's going to do it for you. So either you do it or you close your mouth. And that's kind of the theme of all of his articles. And he goes on, he says it's not just wearing masks. He talks about prayer. Some other guy's job, ? Some people have priests say mass for them, and they have nuns pray for them. Beautiful traditions. But if they aren't taking the time to actually pray and do the work in seeking God on their own, guess what? They're not going to find what they're looking for. Child rearing, some other guy's job. Some people have others raise their children for them. Some kids are in the hands of strangers from 6 weeks old, from 6 months old, from 6 years old. Well, guess what? Your children are going to be like the people who raise them. If you're not raising your kids, you have nothing to complain about. He talks about marriage, defending freedom, blah, blah, blah. He goes all the way through this list, and he basically just repeats, if you're not doing it yourself, then there's no one else who can do it for you. No one else is the problem until you've taken on full responsibility. And that's the theme of all of his writings, and it's great. And that was the theme of his procrastination. Reading is procrastination. Unless you're doing everything you can and reading to increase your knowledge about what you could do, then your reading is probably a way of avoiding doing something you should be doing. And it was funny because when I read that, guess what I was doing? I was reading to kill time. And I was like, oh, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the old deal there, Dave. It's be the change you want to see, or like you and I have talked about, be the change you want to be, which is a little take from the Apostle Paul when he talked about, I keep doing the things I don't want to do, and I don't do the things that I know need to be done. And he's just talking about the physical and mental conflicts that we have, and spiritual conflicts that we have every day. And I think he was talking about what you're just saying, Dave, that no one else is going to do it. You have to be the one that does it yourself. Be that person. And then, the stuff that you keep thinking, oh, I need to quit saying it and do it. I'm the worst one, but I'm just letting you guys know that.
Yeah, well, we all fail at that. And it's fun because the way he writes, he's not like browbeating. He's just like pointing out the obvious. And it's like,
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, jumping back to Dunleavy, I wanted to know what you guys think of this. And I think Mike said at the beginning he was going to open up calls, but let me throw this out real quick. With Dunleavy, do you guys think, first of all, didn't he have a couple years to do this at least, a couple years since Trump was president. So I wonder if this is a little bit of some showboating going on for his base. I stood up to the Biden administration when they tried to do blah, blah, blah. The Biden administration, I don't think has done too much yet. But do you think this is maybe this is legit? Do you think some of it might have to do with oil leases?
It might be because of that the Alaska just joined the lawsuit regarding those oil leases.
Well, I wonder if any of that, anything underwater, what does the federal government consider underwater? Because they consider a lot of things that are wetlands. So I wonder if that falls under this anything underwater we're claiming as the state, because the state of Alaska is what? Half of its wetlands.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I was just curious if that has something to do with oil leases too, to where they're trying to circumvent the federal government and say, well, you can't stop these oil leases because we own this property. This is Alaska land. The state of Alaska owns this. And what about the ocean? How far out does the state of Alaska claim any of the ocean waters? You guys know that? Out to a certain mile, or is it all federal?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to take this caller?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I was curious what you guys thought.
Go ahead, caller.
Hello.
Hey.
I just watched this video. The lady got all the laws in a row to go in, stopping in the store, and cited him to the man when he was trying to force her to wear a mask. And the FDA has determined that the masks are a medical device. And she was telling him you can't practice medicine without a license. That's a felony. And then she had a law about even if a doctor tells you you don't have to, you give consent. If you don't give consent, then you don't have to wear a mask. And then he had all the laws listed down to the point where the guy just rang her up and got her out of there as fast as he could. But the idea is you don't have to take the mask because it's a medical device, and you don't have to consent to wear a medical device. And anybody who's forcing you is doing a felony where they could spend time in jail. And if they have a oath of office, or they work for the government, the laws are the punishment is times 4. So it might be, this is how much time you spent in jail for this if you were just a regular person, and that's times 4. And so you could have somebody's house and they have to spend 10 years in jail for forcing you to do anything against your will, medical or otherwise. Mm-hmm. So it's a way to stand up. And I thought another good idea was to get somebody who likes to shop to go around and find out where people can go and not be forced to wear a mask. And then that way we can know where to stop in town and around town.
Yeah. Well, Josh mentioned a couple of places earlier that are really nice to go into. It's Century and Woolly Rhino.
It'd be a good app. That would be a great phone app.
I would be. Maybe someone wants to develop that out there.
That'd be great, I think.
Of course, I don't know. Would they end up being targets? I don't know, but
targets.
I don't know. I think it'd be a good app, though. I think it'd be.
Yeah. Well, then they're standing up in law. They have standing in law, and the persons who are forcing them against their consent have no standing. They are criminals.
Mm-hmm.
The laws are the authority, not the policies or the codes or the statutes. And even somebody who is being forced to wear a mask in order to keep their job, they could also make a lot of money just by following the law, because when you break the law and you hurt somebody, harm somebody in any way, they must provide restitution for that, brings the person back home. And legal implies contract with full disclosure and agreement without coercion, whereas rights are law. And that's all written down in law, and not at law. There's color of law, and then there's real law. So the color of law has no teeth, has no standing. If there isn't somebody that must bring restitution, the court can't give you a bill of attainder that says, now you have to pay me for this or pay me for that. That takes away your rights. So you can pretty much win everything in court. The problem is having to spend all that time in court. And that's the thing. People want to live their lives. They don't want to spend the time fighting in court. But
Right, Cecily, what do you call a nation that suspends the rule of law?
De facto.
Or dictatorship?
Yeah, de facto. It's no longer lawful. It's de facto. It has no teeth. If you don't uphold the Constitution, which is why you have the job that you have, each different office has a job to do, and if they don't do it according to the dictates of their little box that they're in, or they go outside that box, then they're not following the law. They become criminals. And there are write letters of a remonstrance and to the legislator to redress of grievances, and you have to put it on record. It's not, they don't go out in the street and picket. You have to write these letters to the legislators and instruct them to do their jobs. It's what their job is, to do what the people say. It's of the people, by the people, for the people, and they don't have like in the Declaration of Independence, one of the abuses of a despotic tyrant is to legislate for us in all manners whatsoever, and they don't have that power, right? And then you go to the manual for legislative procedure, and it says that sometimes groups assume powers they do not possess, and you point out this is what your job is. This is what you do it. Do this for me. You assemble the legislator for redress of grievances and remonstrance. Before they do a bill, you can go up there and say, hey, you can't do this. It's against, here's the law that says that you can't do that. So it takes a lot. It does take some reading in order to do your job. The people's duty to instruct the legislators as far as what they want done and what they don't want done.
I want to read what you're reading. What are you reading?
The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the federal papers, the foundation of what this country is. And you could also go check out Kirk's Law Corner. He has a podcast on Mondays and Fridays, and then he has a special Patreon where we'll discuss the laws and point you where to get the laws and how to write all these letters. He's a teacher of the law, and pretty much found out that the bar does not. It's a private club, and it's a foreign monument, and every person in the bar must register as a foreign agent because that's what they are. There's only 3 pillars of law in this country, and there's 4 in England, and that includes the bar, but not in the United States. They don't have a monopoly on your self-protection. You can go in and just and prosecute your own cases, and you can have counsel, and it doesn't have to be a bar member. And then they're finding out a lot of bar members are getting out of there because and getting an oath of office to uphold the Constitution, and then they become lawful attorneys, or not attorneys, but lawful lawyers, lawsayers is what they call them. And so if they don't have an oath of office, then they are a foreign emolument, and they must register as such. But anyway, I've been listening and learning from that podcast, Kirk's Law Corner, for about 2 years now. And he used to have a partner in there, and he has passed since. But he says a lot of the lawyers can sue the university for not teaching them law. they were teaching them statutes and codes. But it's a pretty good place to learn a lot. It doesn't fool around too much. It goes straight to the books and the laws. So it's quite wonderful. I've learned quite a bit. I suggest anybody who wants to actually stand up for the law, they can go on that Kurt's Law Corner.
Okay.
And E-Clause, and there's a lot of groups that are forming all over the country to fight the lawlessness going on in the legislature and the Congress and the executive. Although the executive has been cleaned up pretty much, I don't know if they took that away since the J is there, but while Trump was in, that was it was actually an auditor for the different seats of government to find out who's doing emoluments violations and who.
Do you know of any place on earth that the rule of law still exists?
I do know that they are that they are actually winning some of their cases in the court and actually having the rule of law enforced. But there's a lot of corruption going on, and so it's a long, hard road. It depends on what your priorities are. You know, some people want to fight for freedom and honor their oath of office, and those are the ones that are speaking to. And if you can't do it yourself, you can always support people that are. So that's I hope that helps. But there's also the Nuremberg laws, and there's also OSHA, which you have to have training to wear those masks. And so anybody who tries to tell you to wear a mask and they haven't had training or specifically fit your mask to you and show you how to do it, they have no right to do that. It's against the law too.
Well, actually, they get away with that. The masks don't actually fall under OSHA because they've never been found to be effective.
They're not PPE.
Yeah, OSHA doesn't consider them to be PPE, so they don't fall under OSHA regs. So those regs can't be applied to it. That's how they get away with doing what they're doing.
Well, it's Occupational Safety Hazard Association.
Yeah,
Safety and Health.
Yeah, Safety and Health. Yeah, but they don't recognize those face masks as being effective because they've never been shown to be. So they're not considered PPE officially, and so they don't fall under those regulations. The N95, the N95s do fall under them. They're considered face piece respirators, and they do fall under those regulations, but they don't require those. They just require a face mask.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, then
that's how they're getting away with it.
the whatever the face mask is, the FDA says that's a medical device, and you can't force a medical device on somebody, even if you're a doctor.
Okay.
And if you are asking people to wear this as a medical device without a license as a doctor, then you're doing a felony as well. So there's a lot of ways to force people to actually stand for the law, and you know the policies do not trump right.
That strategy's actually been used by
law.
That's been used by a few people in more.
Legal is contract. So if you don't have a contract, then then you can't force anything on them.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope that helps a little bit. Check out Kirk's Law Corner. It's very interesting and gets to the meat of the law and how it's supposed to work and how to use the law in order to make these officials obey the law, because without their if they don't follow the law, then their emoluments, the money that they get, they don't deserve, and so it can be taken out.
Okay. Well, thanks,
Okay.
Ashley.
Yep. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Okay.
Okay.
That's been that strategy has actually been used by quite a few people with stores, with specific stores. Like there's a few people who live in the Bay Area, which is pretty locked down, and they've gone to the owners. They don't deal with the clerk or the guy at the door or whatever. They say, hey, I want to talk to your boss, and they go all the way up to the person who's actually responsible for what happens there, and they said, look, I really want to do business at your location, but when you do these things, you are taking on the legal liability of a medical professional, and I don't know if you understand what that liability looks like, and if I comply with what you're telling me to do and harm comes to me, this is what you're exposing yourself to legally. Like, this is the level of financial risk you're taking on by forcing me to do this. And so for your sake, legally, I'd request that you not force me to comply with this, because it's exposing you to a huge amount of legal risk. And in most cases, the owners, the people who are ultimately liable for what happens in their store, have capitulated, and it's usually on a case-by-case basis. So there'll be like a guy who goes to a store, and they'll make like an announcement over the loudspeaker. Hey, there's going to be a guy in the store, and he's not wearing a mask, and just let him do his thing, and don't worry about it. And these folks go about their merry way. So in a world where appeal to authority is the rule, if you have etiquette and respect, then the law never even comes into the picture, right? You never end up in court.
Yeah.
But when you're past that, when you're into a different world where where those communal forms of like negotiating boundaries have dissolved, which is basically where we are, the appeal to authority is a real thing. And what Cecily's talked about there has been and is being used effectively by a lot of people who've decided that that's worth their time to investigate.
Well, okay. Last summer, when I was driving around Alaska, kind of measuring the what we end up calling the mask index. Where is it that people are least willing to comply with that because they know it's bogus? Actually, the best place I found was actually Soldotna, not Fairbanks. That's kind of disappointing.
Not even close.
Not even close in Fairbanks. But that gets just in rolling back into the subject that we originally that we started with. Where do you want to be? That was one of the measurements that I was trying to use, where people would most likely respect other people's quote rights. And now we're looking at, Josh wants to talk about the waterways. How do these all play together? Because we're looking at places, where do people recognize individual liberties, recognize people's rights, as in recognizing that it's wrong to accost them for engaging in an activity of their choice. Likewise, did Dunleavy recognize that the feds should not be taking control of Alaska waters and accosting people who are using them? And
I wonder if he recognizes the state taking control of what's underneath any land that Alaskans own.
Or maybe he just wants, you bring up kind of a good point, Mike. Does he recognize the federal government is violating these rights, or does he want his state government to violate it instead? That's kind of, you have to think of it that way.
Yeah, that is a good question. To look at it, and to look at that from the 30,000 foot view again, if there was going to be an entity that was going to violate them, which would be easier to defeat, the federal government or the state government? At least when it's more local, it's more personal to the people around, and it tends to be a smaller entity too. Like if you go to federal court is a kangaroo court.
Yeah.
It's a show trial. If you go to state court, you have a chance.
But is it easier to resist a foreign power than one in your backyard, Mike? Just for conversation, because I agree. We always say, it's best to have, secede all the way down to your neighborhood, basically, then all the way down to your home. The smaller government's the best government. The closest government's the best government. But I wonder if sometimes if it's best to have a government that you're resisting 4,000 miles away rather than 5.
Yeah, well, the Quakers and William Penn, it was fairly easy for them to resist the one that was, 3,000 miles away, because they just had to pretend that they were doing meetings and they really weren't.
Isn't that funny that the founding fathers in some of their writings said that there was no way that a bunch of men could possibly know what's going on in a country 3,000 miles away, and went to war over it. It wasn't over taxes. And then here we are, Alaska's 4,000 miles away from DC.
Yeah, we're farther away, right?
So, Josh, I think,
unfortunately, we're electronically connected.
Josh, I think a lot of it has to do with who you see as your authority.
Right. Well, that would be no one on Earth.
Well, but I guess my point being is, when you say a foreign power, we don't see them, a foreign power, as an authority. When I say we, I mean the average person out there.
Right.
We don't see that as an authority, and whereas we see our local government or whatever as our authority, and that I'm including Washington D.C. in that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, we also have to remember too that the colonists did not see Britain as a foreign power. It was their power. They voted in those elections.
Right.
They knew it was very clear in their mind that they were having a revolution against their own state.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, wasn't it a third and a third and a third? Like there was at least a third of the people that didn't give a hoot.
Yeah. Then you had the Tories who sided with
the Tories who. Yeah,
and that ended up being a moral a moral faux pas of the revolutionaries, the Revolutionary Army, because you're Tory, we're going to take your land, we're going to take your cattle,
right.
So I mean, it might sound like the good thing to do at the time, but chickens always come home to roost,
right?
And
you become
they have.
Defeat.
Well, Mike, I want to tell you real quick that obviously we need to get to Dave to talk about this map here, but along with this map that he's showing on YouTube, Al texted me the navigation waters part of the act there, whatever. I guess I could look it up. I will here in a second. Anyways, so the law does state that each state that has a coastline owns 3 miles exactly out from its shore.
Okay.
So Dunleavy basically is also reclaiming or claiming the shorelines 3 miles out from Alaska. And I know, well, I guess I don't remember exactly how far out, but there's oil within 3 miles from the shoreline. Let's just put it that way. So that's why I'm wondering if some of this again is more protecting the oil industry in Alaska, not wrongly necessarily either, but trying to protect them in advance of the Biden administration trying to shut to stop oil, basically.
Right. That's I'm sure that's part of it. And with oil prices going up now, the state definitely doesn't want to lose that money.
Well, luckily, most of the oil, I believe most of the oil is on, well, at least a lot of it that's working right now is on native tribal lands. So, and they already went to court, and I think they already won, didn't they? Over the feds trying to shut their lands down too. Pretty sure. No, maybe they didn't win, but they did reverse it. I believe, someone knows different, but I'm pretty sure that they exempted the native tribal lands also.
Yeah, I don't know if they won already or not.
I wonder if it's a good idea to start claiming ownership of your land when the entity that is claiming ownership of it at the moment is about to go bankrupt, and its debtors might come a calling.
Yeah.
Well, you can't sell this. This is ours.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they have another decade or so, but I don't know.
20 years to figure out the ramifications between the state and the feds doing.
Yeah,
this.
but I mean, it takes a decade to get an environmental permit, so
yeah,
it's not that big of a time frame. Also, I don't know if you saw, the Biden administration is looking at raising a lot of taxes, and one of those taxes that they were talking about is a mileage tax.
Yeah,
and talking about they want to study how you would do that. You put transponders in the car. How do you do that? Ultimately, the idea is to prevent people from, or to reduce the amount of travel. Yeah. They want to reduce the amount of travel. They want to, of course, they want to move to electric vehicles. There's talk of making gasoline vehicles illegal over time. But of course, they don't have anywhere near the electrical infrastructure for recharge stations. And Alaska developing its natural resources for Alaskans. And I hate talking in that statist manner, but that is a good idea looking forward.
That reminds me, Michael, did you see that picture? I saw a picture the other day of the recharge station being powered by a diesel generator.
Oh, I didn't see that photo. That's great.
It was funny.
I guess a lot of people don't understand that. It's electricity is not free. It's ultimately, it almost all comes from fossil fuels, if not nuclear plant, hydroelectric. So,
it hurts your head, doesn't it?
Oh,
it does. But yeah, if it turns out that he's reclaiming the water so that they can do oil drilling, that may end up being something good for us. In that, if the U.S. starts breaking up, which it is going to, then Alaska has some developed resources.
David, were you wanting to say something about that map?
Just pointing out the extent of it. I was trying to see if it included that coastline you were talking about, and it doesn't appear to. But that's great that you found that 3 mile thing.
Yeah, thanks to Al for that again.
Yeah, that's really cool. There's a lot of, if these are all the navigable waters. I know they're talking about making a road out to this Kotzebue area here, and doesn't look like you could do a lot via canal or via river. But anyway, if you could use a lot of these as shipping lanes, that would be a big deal. I mean, that's kind of how things worked under territorial status.
Yeah, you could get out to Nome easily.
Right. So for things like mining, I think mining might even be a bigger deal than oil.
Yeah, no kidding.
For
That's a good point.
Nobody's looking at that, but the electric thing is sort of already, I think that cake has already been baked. But the problem that everybody has is there isn't enough copper and nickel and scandium and a bunch of these really basic things to make it happen. Copper primarily.
And
yeah, you need to. So like 2% of vehicles right now are electric, and so if you, let's say, you got to 40% in a decade or something like that, that's a 20 times increase, right? 20 times. So right now, copper supplies are already starting to get stretched thin, and that's with 2% of cars on the road being electric. So if you're going to have 20x more, where are you going to get the copper for that? You know, you're not going to get it from recycling because you have to liberate the resource from the ground. There isn't enough above ground copper to do that. So that's going to have to come from somewhere. And the permitting process takes forever. If you had a mine plan today, you wouldn't be putting copper into the market until about 2030, which is when a lot of these electric only mandates on the state level happen. So it could be a crazy bull market for things like copper, silver, lead, a bunch of boring stuff, and then some weird ones like scandium to make strong aluminum and stuff. And these would be necessary. All these waterways would be necessary for accessing a lot of those resources that are, mostly cut off by land that you can't build a road across. So I don't know. He might not be thinking that far ahead. It might be just he had a hunting buddy who got in trouble, But I think mining could end up being a bigger deal than oil extraction for the state, and these would be great ways to access it. These are the traditional ways that stuff was accessed anyway, was by waterway.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Let's. We have a caller. Let's go to the caller. Go ahead.
Hey, you guys talk about masks. Here we got a porous border down there, and a lot of these people are coming across the border with COVID. Oh, we the dumb sheep in here in America are supposed to wear a mask and get our shots. This makes no sense at all. Now we're the American people. We're last in line for the rest of the world now. It's just the people are just. It's just pathetic what's going on.
Yeah, David sent me or sent a bunch of us. We had this article that we saw where there's a Bitcoin conference in China, and I think the guy that wrote the article or whatever that was there, he saw 3 people in China, or at this conference in China, 3 people that were wearing masks, or maybe it was 10. But here in America, you can't go into any store and see less than that.
Yeah, and they weren't socially distanced either.
No, they're sitting all right up against each other, side by side.
It's just irritating, So I don't know. Anyway, I just thought I'd add my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for calling.
Yeah. Well, you guys remember during New Year's in Wuhan, China, where the so-called China virus came from, they were celebrating New Year's. Not even on their New Year, they were celebrating our American or the Western New Year, kind of making fun of us because there was no one at New York. There's no one in New York City celebrating. The streets were clear. There's no one in London celebrating. The streets were clear. And in China, the communist country, there was hundreds of thousands of people celebrating. No mask, side by side, laughing at us.
Well, and they were, you saw how they were talking down to the representatives in Anchorage they talked about last week.
Yeah.
They thought the Americans were a total joke.
Yeah.
Honestly, the one lady was meeting there with the pink hair. You're meeting, the Chinese leaders. Why are you meeting with pink hair?
Right.
If you want pink hair, that's great. But that's not what you do when you're meeting with the top leaders of another superpower.
No, you don't insult them right off the bat either.
Right.
Which they did.
Yeah, which they did. I don't know. Maybe they started laughing at us when they saw who our new Health and Human Services director is.
Assistant. That's the what is it's the deputy or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
About that Rachel Levine.
The trans.
Is it a assistant?
Yeah, and it's the only time in history any of us has ever known the name of an assistant being nominated.
Right.
Whoever hears of that kind of thing? Jeez.
Well, a lot. It's virtue signaling. There's also been appointed a diversity and inclusion commander for the military now.
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the things Elon Musk did in the last month was appointed. He has a head of coin now. Like they made some new positions inside of some of his companies. King of Coin, I think, is the name.
King of Coin.
And it's the guy who manages the Bitcoin side of the company now. And then he gave himself some other just wacky title. And I wonder if he was just being funny or if he was being snarky about I can make up titles too.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
These are the questions that guy asked in that article right here.
Oh, okay.
Can you see them on the screen? I can make them bigger.
I can see it. Let's see. If maskers, why aren't they wearing them religiously in China? If China is ground zero for the economy, destroying CCP virus, why aren't they living in fear? Right. Well, because we're supposed to live in fear. They
Right.
are.
I mean, you can march down this list. Like this list poses questions for both the the Kool-Aid drinkers, I guess you could say, as well as the people who are like the Q people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can they be pretending that all is fine? If this one is really good, this was my favorite one.
If China is so oppressive and the U.S. is so free, why is it that the Chinese are unmasked and the Americans are masked?
Yeah, and again, this is at a conference that was in China. Was it Shanghai, David?
I don't know, but I would assume that it was in a technology city, so something like that. It's in Beijing. There you go. It's in Beijing of all places, right?
Well,
Beijing.
I think we have to come to the realization that America's days are as the first in the world is over. They're over. China is the next financial capital of the world, and Americans are so they've been so indoctrinated away from the concept of individual liberty. They don't even know what the concept is anymore. There is no going back. You're not going to save the republic. You're not going to return to the Constitution. It's not going to happen.
Well, Mike, should we want to? I mean,
no.
As civilizations advance, shouldn't we advance with them? And if you're someone that loves freedom, should you say, well, I need to accept everything that they said in 1776 or 1789 when they made this Constitution, and they decided this big federal government had to be here and this and that, and all these 50 states need to be part of one union. There was a big disagreement with that in the 1860s, where half the states said, no, we shouldn't have to be a part of this. So let's just say this thing is falling apart and it's not going to ever be the same. Instead of trying to, quote unquote, get it back, because it obviously has its flaws, if it didn't, this wouldn't be happening right now. But this is inherently what has to happen because of the way it was set up. It's just the way government works. So maybe instead of make America great again and take America back and restoring America, maybe we should rethink America. Not in a new socialist way. They're trying to rethink us in the new socialist way, but we could rethink this thing and maybe be a lot better than we were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 50, 200. I mean, we can see the mistakes, so let's not bring it all back. If we're going to do something, let's make it better. Let's make it better.
Better, huh?
Yeah, and you can't. Yeah, we can't get there until this cycle is finished.
Right.
we'll roll back. We got 2 callers, so let's
cool.
Bring up the caller. Oh, you're on.
Is that me?
Yep.
Okay, well, I missed some of this, and I wasn't listening. I'm always doing 2 things. But navigable, there's a lot of arguments. I have to go back to like 1980 and battles that I spent over 15 years on with the feds and the BLM. And frankly, Reagan's BLM, the actual real BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, but it's for rivers, it's usually high water to high water. Now, BLM fudges that, and there's all kinds of crap, but that's how they do it on rivers, is high water. And the navigability, and then you go into, I forget the word right now, I used to think about this stuff off the top of my head, of whether there's fish, Andromeda streams and stuff. So anyway, but basically, if it's considered navigable, it's from high water, what the state owns is from high water to high water mark, even within, and illegally, like I hate Anoka, designated wild and scenic, which has 3 designations within that. But anyway, that's not the point. And I just missed because my neighbor that helps me out sometimes just called me, and I'm not going to ignore him. So this woman that calls. So I have been down so many rabbit holes on so many things, I can't even tell you. But the deal on informed consent is this, and I did end up on Wikipedia, and I've been all over FDA, HSS, and what's the other one? It starts with NICB, NIH, the whole thing. I mean, I have a bunch of links. I have too many links and too many bookmarks because I'm trying to find the actual legal thing to present as a legal argument. So there's a lady that I just found, I got linked to, and I go to good sources, or I have good sources that link me to good sources. And anyway, she is finally, because, you know, you bring up the Nuremberg Code and people start saying, yeah, right. Well, the reality is that the Nuremberg Code, while we can all agree with it and everything in it as an ethical code, not one country in the world, is my understanding, has adopted it as actual code, as actual law or statutory. It's not a thing that people signed on to. It's just a thing. So you're not going to be able to go somewhere and say, well, this is against the Nuremberg Code and have it stand up legally. So that had been bugging me for a long time. And so I ended up, and I'm embarrassed, but for the first time in years, because I have bookmarks where I've seen over the course of overnight, over hours, people that have done, I've even heard that archive.org is changing stuff. And, but I've seen that, you know, where they changed Wikipedia, like all of a sudden, kind of like how in October, the CDC, I think that's another site I've been down the rabbit hole on, CDC changed their definition of herd immunity, right? You got to probably talk about that, right?
Yep.
All of a sudden, first their herd immunity was about, well, enough people catch this thing, they develop an, you know, a natural immunity to it, and you create herd immunity, or vaccinations were second. And, you know, I'm saying vaccinations not in the terms of the genetic stuff. And why they're doing this, I know too much about this. I could talk for an hour or more. But anyway, I'm sure my friend in Virginia is getting sick of hearing about it, but he's interested too. So anyway, but Wikipedia does have a lot of links to these things.
Oh,
so
we got to go to break. Can you hold on, caller?
I will.
Okay.
Informed consent isn't a thing.
Okay.
Break time.
KFAR 660 AM Fairbanks, K248DK 97.5 FM Fairbanks, the heartbeat of Alaska.
More Republican criticism of the Biden administration's handling of the border crisis. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News. A group of GOP senators that visited the U.S.-Mexico border yesterday are highly critical of what they saw.
That facility in Donna, Texas, which has gotten quite a bit of negative attention for overcrowded conditions. Many of the senators criticized the conditions inside of Donna and said there should be a change back to Trump-era policies on the border. Here's Senator Cruz.
This is inhumane, it is wrong, and it is the direct consequence of policy decisions by the Biden administration.
A number of Democrats and Biden officials also toured a different border facility. They made the claim that the search has nothing to do with who is in the Oval Office.
Fox's Steve Harrigan in Mission, Texas. President Biden announcing that Vice President Harris is now leading the border effort. More severe weather is possible across the South today as the cleanup continues following deadly tornadoes this week in Alabama and Mississippi. Fox's Charles Watson is in Pelham, Alabama.
It's been a long couple of days for all the communities affected by the tornado outbreaks across the South, including for folks here in this Pelham, Alabama neighborhood. There is significant damage. Their roofs ripped off, big holes punched into the homes where you can literally see into someone's bedrooms. There are still large trees down and power lines down, but the community is coming together to clean up.
At least 6 people were killed by tornadoes in Mississippi and Alabama. Police are investigating a night of deadly shootings along the ocean front of Virginia Beach.
Police responded to a shooting. 8 victims had serious to life-threatening gunshot wounds, plus 1 woman died on scene. Then police say an officer shot and killed a male suspect that was related to the first shooting.
Fox's Lauren Blanchard. America is listening to Fox News.
Hey, it's Brett Larson, inviting you to download and listen to the new daily Fox on Tech podcast. There's part of a colorful late 90s iMac on Mars. It's an idea that seems a lot like Kickstarter, called Build It. This isn't the first time we've heard about North Korea hackers trying to get a leg up on COVID-19, a range that was used for satellite TV service in the 70s. Get the latest trends in technology, cybersecurity alerts, and gadget news daily. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
New York media say embattled Governor Andrew Cuomo has not allowed reporters at public events he's held. Fox's Gary Baumgarten with more.
On the one hand, Cuomo wants to show that the scandals aren't interfering with his job, but on the other hand, he doesn't want to talk to pesky reporters. So he's been attending events, but barring journalists. Cuomo is facing allegations of sexual harassment. He's being criticized for allowing COVID patients to be transferred from hospitals to nursing homes, and he's accused of giving relatives preferential treatment in COVID testing when the pandemic began. In New York, Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
President Biden's son Hunter is in the news again. A Politico report says his former sister-in-law allegedly threw his gun in the trash outside a store in Wilmington, Delaware back in 2018, prompting a police investigation. Louisiana Republican Congressman Steve Scalise on Fox's Hannity.
You've got President Biden right now talking about passing more gun control, making it harder for law-abiding citizens to get a gun. And yet here you have a case of his son who, from all appearances, broke multiple laws and gets off scot-free.
Politico reported the Secret Service became involved, an allegation denied by the agency. A test flight is planned by NASA from the surface of Mars.
You've likely heard of NASA's Mars rovers, but what about a Mars helicopter? The latest rover mission carried the Ingenuity Mars helicopter to the Red Planet, and NASA hopes to fly it as soon as April 8th. In a tribute to humans' first flight here on Earth, Ingenuity has a tiny piece of fabric on board from the plane the Wright brothers flew in 1903. If Ingenuity is successful, this will be the first known aircraft to fly on another planet. Carmen Roberts, Fox News.
And I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News.
This is Gary from Geraldo's. No matter how delicious food is, without great service, that fantastic taste, well, it would be a little less fantastic. At Geraldo's, we pride ourselves on having the most delicious old world Italian food, but also for service that will make your visit truly memorable. From the door to the table, from the appetizer to the dessert, we strive to exceed your expectations, leaving you free to enjoy the wonderful flavors and savor your experience.
Geraldo's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Say yes to garlic, say yes to Geraldo's.
Alaska's vastness and off-the-road system communities make air travel necessary. Whether you need to get from one community to another, dropped at your favorite hunting spot, or backcountry camp, travel by small airplane may be the only option. Unfortunately, accidents happen. If you've been injured in an airplane accident, attorneys at Berglund and Doxy are available to discuss your options for receiving fair compensation. Berglund and Doxy, over 45 years of combined legal experience. Contact them at 456-4020 or online at berglunddoxy.com. Consultations by video conference platforms are also available.
You are invited to Find Out Free Pregnancy Center's spring brunch in person and by virtual live stream. 2 events in one. Learn how Find Out Free is sharing the love of Jesus in our community by helping women and men step into the freedom of God's endless possibilities. Save the date. Attend Find Out Free Pregnancy Center's spring brunch at the Event Center and Lounge or by virtual live stream Saturday, April 17th at 10 a.m. To register to attend in person or virtually, go online to findoutfree.com.
Stay informed of what's happening on the firearm scene today. Tune in to Shooter's Corner, your source for news and conversation on guns, your Second Amendment rights, local events, important legislation, and more. Brought to you in part by Rogers Auto Repair. For nearly 50 years, Rogers Auto Repair has been helping interior Alaskans care for their cars and trucks from the same location on Dale Road near the airport. Listen in to Shooter's Corner every Thursday morning at 11, right here on KFAR Radio.
When you love to fish, you don't let a little bit of ice get in your way. Show your love. Enter the Frontier Outfitters Ice Fishing Photo Contest. You could win a $50 gift card every Friday. All you have to do is upload your favorite ice fishing photo to their Facebook page. Visit Frontier Outfitters for everything you need, from rods and tackle to augers and the right winter clothes. Enter Frontier Outfitters Ice Fishing Photo Contest now through April 16th. Frontier Outfitters, for your Alaskan lifestyle.
Way up north to Alaska, way up north to Alaska.
I'll bet you can find just about anything on your list at Samson's True Value Hardware, painting and home improvements, housewares, livestock and pet care, outdoor sporting goods, hand and power tools, fueling and transportation. Samson True Value Hardware, open Monday through Friday from 8 to 6 and Saturdays 9 to 3.
To Alaska, go north, the rush is on.
And we're back.
All right, we're back.
That's we got a caller, right?
Yeah, we lost one.
Okay.
We have another one. Hello, caller.
Yeah, is that me?
Yep, you're on.
Hey, I want to let you guys know that Alaska Industrial Hardware, they're making it mandatory for their employees to have the vaccine by a certain date. If they don't have the vaccine, then they won't be allowed to work there anymore.
Wow.
So everybody should call up there and tell them they won't do business with them anymore. The number is 907-276-7201. And hit the option for HR. Let them know that you're not going to do business. They're going to make their employees do stuff like that.
Can you give the number out again?
That's all I had for you.
Can you give the number out again?
Yeah, their number is 907-276-7201. It's Alaska Industrial Hardware.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. We need to do that.
Yeah, boycott those businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And also what you were saying about making America great again, I don't think we can make America great again. I think we need to forget about America and take the founding ideas and maybe try to make Alaska something great.
Yeah, I agree. I think there were a lot of flaws when it started as well that we don't recognize oftentimes, but we can take the good ideas and we can build on them.
Or wherever people are.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, agreed. All right, thanks, guys. I like your show.
Thank you.
Thanks
for calling. Yeah, if again, 458-8255, we'd like to hear your ideas of the best places to be for the Great Reset. Do you have any of those ideas? Because honestly, I want to know where to go. Let's go to the next caller.
Hello, I got cut off.
Oh, sorry about that.
I didn't drop it, but I'm kind of glad because that last guy was quick, and that woman that calls every week, she gets a lot of time. But I will definitely call AIH because I definitely go there, and I definitely won't because I can get their stuff somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that guy. And as far as, making this thing a little bit different, so the corruption in the uniparty and everywhere, is just, I agree with all that. But I'm back to this thing. So this informed consent business, there's a bunch of things. So yeah, I did end up on Wikipedia, but I've also been all over, oh my God, you would not believe, all over CDC, FDA, NIH, all these sites. I have so much stuff. But the point is that there are exemptions, and even besides the exemptions to informed consent, it's an implied. For example, they say, well, it's tricky to make an assessment whether there's informed consent unless there's something actually in writing, even if you want to renege on it later and say, hey, I didn't know everything. But like by rolling up your sleeves, I have a personal problem. I don't want anybody jabbing one of those tips up my nose into my blood, up against my blood-brain barrier, where there have been people with leaking brain fluid and stuff from these tests. And I'm saying if we have to wear masks and all of this business, why can't I spit in a cup? So I've been all over CDC and FDA about the sputum thing, but it is an option. But they're claiming that because there's a spray when you spit into the cup and it has to come from deep. So I have all of that. That's all another thing. I want to talk about informed consent and what people think that we have, because we don't. They can, by their own things, get, for example, besides the obvious, you're not capable, you're in a coma, blah, 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 blah. But just by rolling up your arm, that is implied consent, just by rolling up your sleeve. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how a way to avoid have one of those things, because I have a lot of stuff on what could be, how they sterilize those swabs, for example. I have a lot of stuff on swabs from the government, and she's right about these things being considered medical devices. And I have a lot of stuff on that too from the FDA, because I'm trying to find the actual law. So those are things. So which one am I on? I'm on the waivers. Okay, something few people know about. It can be overridden in emergency medical situations pursuant to 21 CFR 50.24, blah, 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 valid elements, waiver of requirements. Okay.
Can we go to a point? We have other callers. We need to.
There's a bunch
roll
of
along here. Right, but we need to get to one thing.
Our requirements without our knowledge. First, there's the emergency thing. And on December 13th of 2016, during the transition, Obama signed the 21st Century Cures Act, which is, I think, I can't remember everything right now, but it was passed practically, if not unanimously, by the Senate. So, man, you want to get into that. So this is the thing. What it does is it allows researchers. So then you say, okay, what's the definition of researchers? To waive the requirement for informed consent when clinical testing, quote, poses no more than minimal risk and includes, unquote, so it's either that or includes appropriate safeguards to protect the rights, safety, and welfare of the human subject. So I can get really a lot deeper into all of this.
Well, do you have a final point?
Can you just get to
We have other callers. We only have about 15 minutes left.
You guys give that woman a lot of time every single week.
Well, this is our show. So.
Yeah. Well, there's that act.
Oops. My bad.
Okay.
I didn't want to hear him argue. Sorry.
Anyway, we have another caller, I think. Or they hung up. They hung up. Huh? Okay.
Yeah, I draw the line at arguing.
Okay, Josh.
Sorry, Josh.
No, it's good.
Arguing with you.
I just I'm lost now. What were we even talking about?
Well, we want we want callers to call in and let us know where have they found to be a good place where liberty is recognized, at least the least ugly of the 160 ugly sisters in the world.
Yeah, and we've talked a little, Mike. I wonder what people think about where do you want to live and the reasons why, and would that change if you knew, and none of us know anything future wise, none of us know exactly or anything will or what will happen. But if you knew or assumed that a economic reset or collapse was going to happen, would that change your view on where you live?
Mm-hmm.
So like when things are good, yeah, I want to live here. Well, if things aren't so good, would I really want to be in this spot or would I want to be over here? I mean, maybe it's 20 miles difference even.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Are the four of us, five of us, the only people that think about this stuff?
I don't know. The 20 miles difference is really something because, like I said, Soldotna had the best mass index as far as I found. But I go down to Homer. Homer was horrible.
Yeah.
You can grow food in Homer better than you can in Soldotna.
Yeah, but Homer has the best growing zone pretty much in the whole state.
Well, I'm in Idaho, and the city we're in is, well, there's really just one city out of about four, but the city we're in, a couple miles down the road is the next city limits, and where they butt up to each other. And in this city, not so many masks. In the other city, mandate masks for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just, a couple miles could make a big difference. And also here where I'm at, 40 miles makes a huge difference between here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if people, maybe, I don't know, maybe we're the only ones that ever contemplate these things.
Yes, I think Fairbanks is a very transient town, so we're affected by that.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing when you're considering your liberty may depend on the people that you've known for a while.
Well, and then
constantly.
Moving, just packing up and moving 20 miles or 40 miles outside of Fairbanks could be, if you're not prepared for it, could be pretty rough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
or near impossible if it's late in the year, or
Mm-hmm.
you have little kids. So in that circumstance, sometimes you think, well, do I want to be out in the boonies? Do I want to be close to this civilization, or do I want to be close to this community, that community, no community? But I think, like you just said, Mike, the no community is not the best option, I don't think.
No, just moving out to the woods is not. It's not a good option. I mean, you can't engage in commerce out in the woods, right?
Yeah.
There's an old saying,
and what is
no man is an island.
right? Oh, right. And what's the question of society? Does society exist? No, it doesn't exist. It's simply the activity of people engaging in commerce. That's all. That's really what it is.
I think I want to go live around the Amish and the Mennonites.
Yeah, well, that's a possibility.
Skills, and they recognize people's rights.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just glad that we have a really old guy on the show with us to tell us the really old sayings that he knows.
Does he want to tell us his name?
That's what I'm here for.
That's right. Wisdom. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I get more the longer my beard gets.
Wow. Is that how it works? I shouldn't have shaved. Anyways, when Mike and I were talking about this navigational thing a little bit, the waterways or whatever, I don't know, to me it sounded like, I do have if I don't trust Dunleavy at all, just especially the way he handled the COVID thing. He's a weenie. But this is a good sign for people, I think, in Alaska, that he is asserting some states' rights in this particular issue. I mean, at least instead of having two people claiming ownership of something that we want to use, there's only one We don't have to fight them both. We can focus on the state and not the feds. If he accomplishes what he says he's doing.
Yeah, I was going to say the feds haven't given up yet, have they?
No.
They didn't just roll over and go.
No, but he's got a pretty good chance with it, I think, because of the Supreme Court cases. I think the most recent one was a year or 2 years ago, 2019, where the Alaska case actually happened, where that guy where he got arrested and beat up.
I remember.
Bunch of
where they
nonsense.
beat him up and stuff. And,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we got a call.
Joe?
Yep. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi. One of y'all alluded to it earlier, Ahmed, that where we want to be in this form of oppression that's taking place, or the collapse of our system. I've struggled with it a lot, but what's helped me is to make sure that it doesn't matter where you're at in this at one time promised land, is where your soul is at. And I appreciate you that you all kind of hinted at that, and I just wanted to make sure it was voiced to all that yes, it's your soul. And one of the things is through this frustration of what I can do, or try to prevent, or try to, as one of the governed, try to save the collapse of this system, because it was inspired. I mean, there was founding fathers, and we know who they were inspired by, is to, the scripture of the talents, that parable that was shared about the talents. That should motivate all of us to what we've been given, the gift of agency, of being able to choose. That gift was given by our Creator, and that it should ring home of the parable of the talents. So
I like that. That's a good point. If you look at the talents as freedom,
what have we done with that talent that's been given to us?
Yeah,
that gift of being able to choose. So I appreciate you hinting at that whole process, but that's what's helped me endure all these tyrants, Nazis, communists, everything that's been torn down for the fight for freedom. It's sad, but that's what gets me there, is where I want to be, is what my appropriate reaction was, so that my soul is well. So thanks for that.
It'd be hard to argue that Paul and Silas weren't
because
in jail.
I would be, because I'm, I don't know, open-minded, aware of my surroundings, or paranoid, however it may be construed. They would be some stupid people if those federal agencies were not listening to your show. So
I know they are. I was told by a prosecutor that they listened. That was many years ago, but
so good. So I just for a message for them, because they are listening to the wrong source and they're not right with their souls. I want to tell them, come and get me. I'm ready. So
you're ready to preach to them.
I'm to that point. My soul is well. I've done all that I can do as far as alter. Unfortunately, we may be left with only abolish. So that's kind of, but I think we're almost there.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks again for hinting at that, but that's what it means.
Okay. Talk to you later.
He's not wrong.
Okay. You're on.
Yeah, this is Carl from Fairbanks. So I just called the AIH, and I'm not sure if that's completely accurate, that people will be fired. I'm thinking that maybe it's not a bad thing to call them just to ask the questions.
Mhm.
But we might want to do a little bit more digging before we start blasting them all over the place and spreading misinformation. So
Yeah, and blasting them's not a good idea.
Down in Stewart, I wasn't able to get a hold of anybody in Fairbanks, but he kind of filled me in on it and said that a lot of people are reading the first paragraph of it and jump into conclusions, but nobody's going to be fired because they can't force anybody to get the vaccine. So
Okay,
I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Are they just encouraging it, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it sounded like to me. But I mean, you know what? They can be really sneaky with the way they word things and not be truthful. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. That's the info I got.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep, you bet. Bye.
Mhm.
I was actually thinking about that same thing.
Okay, you're on.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, taking off from the question of where would you want to be, most freedom oriented or whatever. Well, I got this thought to throw out there. There's one place in the, since we're talking along spiritual lines, and there's one place in the Bible that they were actually specifically warned to flee from, and that's Babylon. And so I wouldn't want to be in Babylon. I mean, kind of taking it from the other direction, not where I want to be, but where would I not want to be? And so the question is, where's Babylon? And I think plain reading of the word is it's an actual literal physical place. And so I don't want to be in that location if God specifically tells us to flee from it.
Mm-hmm. Well, where is Babylon to you? Would it be Washington D.C. itself? Would it be all of America? How can you define the borders that we need to move past?
Well, I think that Babylon is it's speaking of a city in particular. The Bible is, but I think it also encompasses a country or a nation that's represented by that city. My thoughts are that there's a lot of good reasons to think that that at least some portion of the United States fits the description.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to get in. I mean, we don't have much time left here, and I'm not sure we want to talk about it to that extent anyway. But I mean, do a little, for instance, just do a little research on the Statue of Liberty, and I've heard that it represents the Babylonian goddess Isis. My research seems to indicate that maybe it's not exactly right, but it does represent a large goddess type figure that is at least similar in some ways to Isis. Actually, there's a town right in the New York area called Babylon. You can go on and on. There's a lot of reasons to think that that the United States could be, or at least part of the United States could be this Babylonian entity that the Bible talks about.
Who the heck would actually live there in a town called Babylon?
Oh, I have.
Yeah, maybe. Well, thanks, Oliver. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, maybe that's why people are leaving New York. Maybe they're leaving Babylon. Right?
Good food for thought, right there.
But when the Roman Empire collapsed, it was the center part of the empire where people were really getting looted by the Roman troops, and it was people on the outskirts of the empire who did better. So, Alaska's kind of on the outskirts of the empire.
Well, you might make the argument that we're not actually part of the empire because we weren't legally brought into it.
Yeah, well, that argument. I tend to agree with that argument. It's how do they view it? We already have all these bases up here, and we have the Joint Terrorism Task Force up here, and that's the problem. So I guess we're at the end of the show.
All right,
we'll talk to you next week.
Hey, that was fun.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Patriots Lament.
This is Mark Levin. Don't miss the Mark Levin Show weekdays from 3 to 6 right here on KFAR Radio.
Fox News, I'm Ann Carrick. Republican senators criticizing current policies after a tour at the southern border. Texas Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne tells Fox News Live the Biden administration has no plan.
They've got 700% capacity at some of these centers. They don't have enough food. They don't have enough water. Kids are showering once a week.
The president says Vice President Harris will lead efforts to regain control at the border. Another spending package on the horizon. President Biden preparing another $3 trillion